Site.
Okay.
Great. Okay, so thank you. Jumping in, gender equity is actually an issue of status. So I want to start off by clarifying some concepts. Gender equity is the tool that we use to achieve gender equality. It's like financial equity in that it's how you get to even. Gender equality is actually the issue of status. And women still have second-class status in the workplace and in society. When we have second-class status, it doesn't matter whether we see ourselves as a woman or as a person of color or a taxi driver. People believe, it doesn't even matter how much we contribute objectively or how much skill we have. People believe that we intrinsically have less value than others or themselves, and that determines how they treat us, with less respect physically, emotionally, mentally, and financially. Let's say I had a groundskeeper named Penny, who has worked on my yard for 15 years. I ask about her family every day. We exchange pictures of our kids and our pets. I recommend her to other people. But, and I have this big front deck on my, in front of my house. I never invite her up onto my deck. And I never come down from my deck to talk to her. To anybody who's watching, it's clear that I don't hold Penny in the same esteem as I hold the people that I invite to hang out with me on my deck. One day, a neighbor bikes by who's having a bad day and decides they're going to take it out on someone. They come near my house and they see Penny working below my deck. And they make a quick social calculation in their minds and plow into her with their bike. So Penny was within reach. She appears by my behavior as her employer to deserve less respect and has a job that the neighbor assumed gives her limited resources for retaliation. These simple assessments solidly place Penny and everyone, quote unquote, like Penny, in second place status. Here's a quick and adorable video demonstrating how it plays out in the pay gap. And I'm going to play a few short videos throughout my presentation, and I want to acknowledge up front that they're pretty culturally white. YouTube is catching on, but it hasn't yet caught up, so just bear with me. Okay, I'm going to do this by sharing my screen. Get to here. And share. Oops, Jane, it looks like you have to enable participant screen sharing. I can't talk. Oh, now you're sharing your screen.
Up at the top. Up at the top.
Okay, there we go. Trying this. Okay, here's the first one. So kids get it. Not sure why it's so difficult for adults to get it.
They didn't get it at first.
Their reactions were, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. It was kind of muffled. Their reactions were pretty telling. That first little boy really caught my eye. Okay, so we have this problem. Why is it taking so long for women to gain equal status? Jane, why don't we just do this poll? We have another poll. Let's see what you all say. Why do you think equal status for women is taking so long to achieve?
It's question number 2, because number 1, I made a mistake because I'm just learning how to do this. So just do question number 2.
Yes, skip the first one. So step 1 of every problem-solving method is to understand the problem fully. So that's why I would just like to know what you think the core drivers are.
I can't get it to go to the next one. I only get one.
Scroll down on the right side, there's a scroll bar. You should be able to scroll down.
So only one person has voted so far.
But
2.
I have a question,
Personally, I would say all of the above.
Okay.
but I have one question for our presenter, and my answer immediately came up because men have all the power.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't an option.
This is true. I did keep it pretty streamlined.
You could see
But
that the little boys felt entitled to the bigger share that they got by just the expressions. They were pleased.
Mhm.
You know? They weren't diving into share until the girls spoke up.
Mm-hmm.
It was only the girls basically who said it's not fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
they assume.
Mm. Fascinating. Yeah, good points. So the 4 points that I wanted to structure my talk around today are: 1, people don't know enough about women's value. 2, people don't know how serious the problem is. 3, people don't care enough to make change. And 4, people don't know how to make change. And then, of course, the last choice is all of the above, which somebody mentioned, and that's exactly what the fact is. And there are other factors that these are sub factors of, as well as sub factors of these points. So the first one, people don't know enough about women's value. In addressing this point, let's address the question, why are we focusing on gender? The fact is, women are the largest marginalized group in every population. Whether you're talking about racial or ethnic communities, veterans, or people who have disabilities, etc. Women are also, and I'm sure you all know this, the most influential group in every population. So the United Nations released formal statements saying that the success of women is the key to societal and economic success, and that improving the status and treatment of women improves the lives of every other group. It doesn't work the other way around. If you improve things for, let's say, Black men, you're not improving.
I'm not able to get this either, please.
There you go.
Who is this?
I guess that's not directed at me.
No, I think people, if you're just listening, please mute yourself. I'll mute her.
Okay, thanks. It doesn't work the other way around. But if you improve a situation for Black women, Black men definitely benefit. And now I have an ice cream truck going on in the background, so just ignore that. This explains why societies that empower women have lower incidence of violence, both within and between communities. They're more resilient to infectious disease. They have higher levels of health and well-being for families, including men. They provide better education for their children and even are less vulnerable to smoking and alcohol abuse. Men perform better in organizations with more women because those environments are healthier, those work environments are healthier. Women today contribute more to the US economy every year, get this, more than Japan's entire GDP. And women are better leaders in crisis. This has been proven by research. It's not just an opinion. So gender equity could really be critical to our long-term economic recovery from the pandemic recession. These are all important factors in considering the importance, the central importance of women to our overall societal and economic health. So moving on to the second statement, people don't know how serious the problem is. It's actually urgent. US women lose an averaged total of more than $900 billion every year due to the pay gap. And by the way, where are we on the pay gap? It actually doesn't matter. There are several ways of measuring it, and depending on the report and the way that report measured it, you'll get different numbers. What does matter is that the Institute for Women's Policy Research reports that progress has actually slowed in the past 15 years. Latina Equal Pay Day actually moved backwards 18 days between 2018 and 2019. Education does not help Black women get ahead. And women are still leaving or being stymied in the highest paying fields like STEM and construction because of glass ceilings. And like in that video, finance is definitely one of those fields. Furthermore, women's second-class status is solidly perpetuated every day in the form of gender-based myths. And we fight this, every one of us fight these every day, every moment of every day. Sally Krawcheck, who's a former Wall Street executive and founder of Ellevest, pointed out that it's actually viewed as an attractive female characteristic to be bad with money. Teachers tend to reward boys for taking risks, but discourage girls when they fail, especially in areas that aren't conventionally feminine. This discourages girls from even thinking about entering those fields. And have you noticed, you probably have, that we're still talking about women's equal status in terms of centuries? Really, what else takes that long? It's already been a century since suffrage for white women. Models predict at least another 100 years for women just to get fair representation in leadership. And come on, 257 years for Latinas to make 60 cents more on the dollar? Especially now with COVID, this fact is painfully highlighted with the devastating impact that all working women are feeling, and particularly women of color. People ask me all the time, aren't things getting better? Well, of course, but in one study, 61% of women still said their male counterparts failed to treat them as equals. Employers tend to undervalue degrees when earned by women and pay women less at every education level. And employers often make assumptions about what kinds of work different genders are best suited for, funneling women into lower paid and lower level positions. This is called occupational segregation. The third point, people don't care enough to make change. I didn't say that as a way to be callous. It's more of an understanding of reality, because let's face it, we're all busier and more distracted now than we have ever been. Technology, competition has filled every moment of our lives between job and college applications, keeping up with a constant barrage of ever-changing news priorities, caring for our families, both immediate and extended. Women are in particular in that sandwich generation, taking care of kids as well as taking care of aging parents. It's really hard to focus until it affects something we care about all the time. And generally that's our wallet or our access to resources. So speaking on the broader level, communities need to understand that government resources are needlessly tapped because the pay gap is largest for mothers, making single working mothers among the poorest people in our country, which is ridiculous when you think about it. This impacts their children, our future generations, where they get to live, how well they get educated, and even what they're able to eat and what their access to food is, food insecurity being a huge issue that's now finally coming to the surface. The pay gap also impacts women's ability to save for retirement, leaving women over the age of 65 almost twice as poor as men. In fact, women make up more than 2/3 of the elderly poor, relying on government assistance as well as family resources. The consequences of women's second-class status also destabilize families. Men receive lower wages when they take jobs that are typically ascribed to women, but if they're still the primary breadwinner, this can impact their overall family finances, putting stress on the domestic stability and very often leading to domestic violence. Men experience enormous cultural pressure to be that primary breadwinner, and they're bullied socially and punished professionally when they openly prioritize caregiving. There are a lot of stories out there where a boss has actually said to a man's face, your priorities don't align with what we feel is a leadership quality, so we're not promoting you. And that's that. Speaking of employers, they need to know that equal status for women in the workplace is more than a nice to have. Companies that rank higher for leadership diversity are actually likely to be at least 15% more profitable. And this is amazing. This is borne out by research. We don't have to prove it. And all we have to do is raise the awareness. So this happens because employees in general, when there's more diversity, are more productive, they're more creative, and they enjoy better mental health. And these companies therefore have better retention and access to larger talent pools. And all of this impacts the bottom line. The last point, people don't know how to make change, is actually the most important. People don't know how to make lasting, widespread change. And this is actually why the Kim Center exists in the first place. I hear over and over again from company leaders that they don't even know where to start, and it's not their fault. But when it comes to leveling the playing field, the options are vast and vague at the same time. I'm going to take 5 minutes here, just 5 minutes, to see if you have questions, because I've just dumped a lot of data on you. No questions? Great. Oh, Anne. Looks like Anne has.
I'm not sure it's a question. Even though I'm a total pacifist, I was so excited when I read that of the 6 platoons doing the most grueling part of becoming a Marine, the all women's platoon came out first.
Yeah.
I mean, I was thrilled to death. Now let's publicize that. Women
Yes.
can do anything,
Yes.
and they can do it better.
Wow, that sounds like a song. You should write a song. Yes, thank you for sharing that, Anne. And it is absolutely true that there is often a strength and size difference between men as a whole and women as a whole, but that's no excuse for preventing women from doing what they can do better, do better than men in whatever situation. And the reverse is true, right? It's not true that men are less nurturing or less successful in raising children. So if they want to be educators, if they want to be nurses or stay-at-home parents, primary caregivers, of course they should be allowed to. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions, or shall I move? Oh, yes, Shauna.
Hi, I have a question about regarding one of your survey questions, which said no one knows how to address the problem. Can you offer any insight on how to address the problem?
Ah, yes. And actually, my next section is how we can speed things up. So I will talk about what the Kim Center is doing as a nonprofit, and then how employers can help and how we as individuals can work toward this as well. So do you mind if I just wait?
Great, yeah.
Okay, great. Anyone else?
Hey,
Awesome.
are the stats that you quoted on your website or somewhere, do we have a copy of it?
Some of them are. I do have, there are a lot of sources here. So what would be the best way to get a list? Jane, should I just send you a list of links at the end?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and then she can
Great.
distribute it to all of you. Thanks for asking,
Great.
Sherry. Anyone else? Awesome. Well then, as Shauna set up perfectly for me, I'll move into how do we address all these issues in an accelerated manner. So the Kim Center's mission, as I said, is to accelerate equal status for all genders, races, and ethnicities in the workplace. As change makers, it's our responsibility to give community and company decision makers a clear vision, first of all, of what gender equity and gender equality look like, a reliable and structured way of measuring progress, and a convincing method of demonstrating the bottom line benefits to their stakeholders. Because let's be real, leaders answer to their stakeholders. We're doing it through collaboration, structured action plans, and standardized accountability. So just running through really quickly, our initiative right now, the signature initiative is called Gender Leap. It's a data-driven program that achieves this with employers by providing an academically rigorous set of quantifiable metrics in the form of an assessment. And we worked with UC San Diego on this for a couple of years, actually, really to get it right. And we're working with company partners right now. The assessment is actually out in the field. It's happening. We then move into custom playbooks that outline roles, goals, and timelines, most important, for all stakeholder groups within a company. And then our standardized accountability in the form of an accreditation that compares apples to apples, really, across industries, regions, and time. So no matter what decade you're in, what city you're in, what company you are, what industry you're in, everybody who is looking at our website, genderleap.org, for example, which is the dashboard, public dashboard, will be able to tell what companies really are moving the needle instead of just taking people's word for it. So we focus on the workplace as a structured environment that's really conducive to metrics, progress metrics, and accountability. And it is intrinsically tied to status in society, as I kind of demonstrated with my deck analogy. And so we focus on the workplace. Now, we know we're not going to get there one company at a time. So Gender Leap is also being scaled to the regional level. There is clear research that says if you want to make widespread cultural transformation, you need to do it on the local level. So we're uniting regions using San Diego County as our proving grounds around the same tools and strategies. And we're refining a replicable regional model designed to generate a permanently upward trajectory of national cultural transformation. And we are honored and grateful that our work has already received commendations from the state of California, the county of San Diego, city of San Diego, others and other cities. So we're excited to have important leaders as our partners and communities as our partners. So I'm just going to back up for a second and and talk about what I mean by equity, workplace equity being a tool. Equity means that employers do two main things, among other things. But first, they admit that certain groups don't enjoy equal status, like women of color being pushed out because their cultural values are viewed as unconventional, or primary caregivers who can't take advantage of advancement opportunities because their employers' policies or practices don't meet their needs. I don't know if you've seen this video, but it's adorable. I'm going to share it.
Not bad.
Ayo, is there supposed to be sound?
Oh, yes. Are you not hearing it?
No.
Oh dear.
No.
But you can hear me, apparently. Let me try turning up the sound. Does that
Ladies,
help?
Okay.
Did that help? Hello?
No.
That didn't help at all?
No. And
Oh, bummer. Okay, well, I'll talk you through it. So you can, I'm sure you can guess what's going on. Pearl is feeling unwelcome, unincluded. Everybody's looking at her like she doesn't belong there. This is the meeting. She doesn't have a voice. She's not invited to the social engagements. Okay. So we'll move on and I'll stop sharing. Sorry about that. That's weird. You heard the first video, right? Oh, you couldn't hear the first one either.
no, but there were captions on the first one.
Right. Okay. Limitation of Zoom, or at least of today. Okay. Well, I was going to only play up to there. So let's move on. Secondly, so first they need to admit that certain groups don't enjoy equal status. Secondly, employers need to take conscious steps to do what's needed, whether it's in the form of adding support or removing obstacles. So this could be, training managers in unconscious bias, so they don't assume that a new mother isn't going to want to travel for a lucrative account just because she's a new mother. Or if you have an executive who, I'm going to draw on the new mother example again, was a new mother, put a lock on her door and make sure she has a private place to pump so that this becomes a non-issue. What else can employers do? First, really, you need buy-in from the top. Change comes from the top. But you also need buy-in from all the other stakeholder groups. So that's your board, your middle management, and other staff. And bring both marginalized and privileged groups together so they can generate understanding, allyship, and collaboration. And I know I'm just defining these, describing these all in a very broad format for the sake of time. Then adopt a structured plan with milestones. It's not enough to place a statement on your website. And at this point, I always advise people to rely on the experts because believe me, decades of research have gone into studying workplace equity. So the metrics and the methodologies are already out there, and you don't want to spend the time and energy to make up your own. Plus, there can be backlash. You might find this fascinating, but within 2 years of implementing an initiative, an environment that doesn't have diversity can revolt in a way. But within 12 years, there's significant improvement in social trust and quality of life. And for that kind of sustainability, you really need someone who knows how to use the long lens. And this fact is playing out right now all over the country, because 75% of diversity trainings are failing or making things worse, which is not helping anybody. And then the last thing I'm going to emphasize is workplace equity has to be in the budget. It needs to be a genuine business priority. Any questions at this point? Yes, Kathy.
Why do you think it is that 75% of diversity training is not effective?
And this will actually, I'll include this source in my list of sources too, so you can go to it on your own. It was a study done or reported at least in Harvard Business Review. Lack of customization, just bringing out-of-the-box solutions, making it mandatory in any form, focusing only on one group, like just management, instead of, as I was saying before, all the stakeholder groups. And yeah, they focused on 3 main ones.
Or focusing just on white men who
Yeah,
have to change.
exactly.
Okay, so that just gets their hackles up and there's instant resistance. Okay, I get it.
Exactly.
Wow, that's disturbing though, isn't it?
Yeah, I read this statistic, and it was another reason why I started the Kim Center, because good research is out there. Good methods, good trainings are out there. And there is no room in this mission for anybody who just wants to hang a shingle and make a buck. Sorry, that's my ire rising. Any other questions? Okay. So I'll move into what can we all do as individual advocates. Educators, please do your own homework about bias in your classrooms. Stanford did a study where they thought math performance was going to skew according to gender. And instead, they found that it skewed according to geographical location. In wealthy, highly educated, and mostly white areas, boys outperformed girls in math. In poorer areas, more racially diverse, girls outperformed boys in math. They also found that boys performed especially well in math in those communities. You know, the affluent, highly educated, and predominantly white also goes hand in hand with more males being highly educated and earning more than females. So what's happening there, according to the study, is that boys are reflecting, they're financially empowered male role models, and girls are reflecting their less financially empowered and maybe overall empowered female role models. It is nurture, it's not nature. If you're part of the financial machine of higher ed by any chance, try advocating for reforming college recruiting and student loan practices. Women receive 57, more than half of all the bachelor's degrees out there, but they have more than 2/3 of student loan debt. And different reasons include women receiving lower pay in jobs in college already, which limits their ability to pay their tuition as they attend. They have more family responsibilities, so they take longer to graduate. They experience more aggressive recruiting from for-profit colleges that offer lower quality education, which leads to lower paying jobs after school. And they receive biased career counseling from college advisors who often direct them into lower paying fields. I referred to this earlier. And of course, the pay gap, once they start their careers, makes it harder for them to pay back their loans. If you happen to be connected to social impact investing, now these are just some ideas, but I'm hoping that they spark more ideas for you. Please be aware that female entrepreneurs get fewer and smaller business loans and other access to capital than men for no other reason than their gender. Women are actually more reliable in making payments and completing financial obligations than men. Lastly, we as individual advocates, we must question everything we think we know. The Kim Center, for example, did an informal interview study. This example cracks me up. So most people reported believing that men are better leaders, partly because more leaders are men, so they must be better at it. They were then asked in a different place to associate gender with a series of personal and professional qualities. And then later in the interview, they were asked to choose ideal leadership qualities from that same list. And guess what? All the interviews as a whole chose only qualities that they had earlier labeled feminine or gender neutral. And this was almost half men and half women. Nobody chose qualities that were labeled masculine. And in case you're curious what these qualities were, trustworthy, collaborative, and communicative. Across the board, they decided that these were the most important leadership qualities. Men are also important as allies, and I had another cute video here, but there are a lot of really aware men out there, and we need them to speak for us, partly because that's who people are listening to, but partly also to influence any man who might be, or woman, who might be on the fence about which way to go, what to think, how to think. So as women, it's also important to embrace these allies, because there are a lot of potential allies who are scared. They don't know what to say. They don't know when to talk. We all need to work together. Women make mistakes too. We're all, as long as we acknowledge that we're in this together, we can make this happen. And then moving into women standing up for themselves, ourselves, and other women as well, the more we do it, the faster it'll become everyone's reality. And that adorable video of the yarn ball that I was showing you, it's Purl, P-U-R-L. I guess it's a knitting term. So if you just Google Pixar and Purl, I'll put this in the list as well, you'll find the video. So the end of the video or the second half is her crocheting herself into the likeness of the men and making the same kinds of jokes and acting in the same way and having the same violent tendencies. And she's welcomed into their fold. And they're all about to head out to the bar. And another yarn ball, a yellow one, comes up in the elevator. And there's this moment where she's trying to decide what to do. She's just aligned herself with the men and been successful. Does she ignore the yellow yarn ball and go with the men, or does she reach out? So of course she turns around, she welcomes the yellow yarn ball into the fold, and that influences the rest of the culture. And the last scene is the workplace is, half yarn balls and half men. So beautiful point. Remember, the point is not to become more like men, to compete with them. It's to increase the value of who we are naturally. So we need to believe in our own worth. We also need to talk to men about what they're making, and other, just people in general about what they're making. We need to advocate for ourselves in terms of what our salaries are. And we need to make sure our supervisors are advocating for us. It is documented that supervisor support is very important in how you move through the pipeline. They need to promote your work. Insist on a balanced distribution of labor at home. It is not a favor if your husband, I'm just going to say, gender stereotypes, if your husband helps. And I'm saying this because I keep hearing it. It's not helping. It is half their responsibility. And we as women need to start expecting that, laying out those expectations so the kids see it, and men will step up. I promise you, they will. When you assess companies, as I was saying earlier, whether to work for them, to invest in them, or buy from them, look for the ones that are doing more than lip service, that they're demonstrating alignment with your values. Do they have female leadership? And then as Pearl did, make a path for other women whenever you can. So that brings me to the close of my presentation, and more questions if you have them. Yes, Jane.
Well, this is more of a comment. My husband told me that he actually reads the prospectuses from companies that we have investments with and votes for the board of directors. And he said, one thing I look at when I vote for the board of directors is how many boards is the person on? If the person's on too many boards, then I won't vote for that person. And he said lately, the people on a lot of boards are women. It's because all these companies are running out and say, well, we have to get a woman on the board. So the same women are, I guess, applying for all these positions. We need more women to apply for these boards.
Yes, it is absolutely true. I think somebody else was saying, jumping in.
Yeah, that ties into, this is Sherry, that ties into something that I was going to ask, and that is that if it's taken us a century to get this far, how do you deal with the malaise, the population of women out there who are not applying, that are not applying because of that malaise, because of knowing, oh God, it's been like this forever and ever, it'll never change. How do you deal with that? What do you suggest for dealing with that? Because I think the statistics are there. We know for a fact that's all there. I think we have to deal with those things that are the psychological statistics, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, that is another reason why I started the Kim Center. I looked around and I saw all these empowerment programs for women, and I thought, oh my God, aren't women doing enough already? And this is part of the problem. We've been relying on women to carry the torch for this mission. And that means, you know, we're leaving it in the hands of women, of people who are doing, or who are so busy. My recommendation to an individual would be, do what you can, you know, based on the things that I've said and other things that you read, and then let it go. My hope is that the Kim Center will ourselves be able to, and influence other entities to take on this, all the different aspects of the mission, because women can be as empowered as they want, but if they walk into a workplace environment or a social environment that doesn't welcome it, what's the point? So employers absolutely need to transform their cultures. So I think one of the ways is, you know, if you're voting for a board, please tell your husband not to look at how many boards they're on. Vote the women in. We need, in any situation, a 30% representation. 30% is the tipping point for becoming a more equitable environment. If you have one woman on a board of 20, you're not going to get there. Or even one trans person, or one Black person, or one Korean, you know, whatever. One isn't going to do it. Two isn't going to. They applaud the efforts of the policymakers who said, you know, you have to have X number of women on your boards. That's a step in the right direction. But companies have to, you know, on their leadership as well. Finance committees, wherever your situations are where there aren't enough women, try to get to 30%.
Politics.
Politics, absolutely. It's, you know, 15% isn't good enough. 20% isn't good enough. Yes, Carol.
Well, I was just thinking, isn't it also true, isn't age, isn't the generation a factor also? I mean, I'm retired. I've been retired for at least a decade, maybe two. And I was hoping that in this day and age, that the younger generation is more open to women, to race, to religions. And that's what I'm hoping. What do you see? What do you think?
Every generation wants to improve on the last, and it does happen to a certain extent. there are limiting factors in that every generation works for the generation before them. So there are a lot of lines to toe if you want to succeed. And especially like with our millennial generation, they're the poorest of all the generations at this point in their lives. They're living with their parents. They're making, I heard a statistic that the average income of millennials between something like the ages of 25 or 35 or something like that is half of what their parents were making at that time, or their savings is what it was. So yes, there's a lot of good intention out there, but there's also a lot of fear because of where people have landed. Millennials, actually, there was a study done, again, out of Harvard, and I don't have this, if I can find the link on this, I'll include it, but something like 2/3 of the men who were interviewed still expected their wives to be the primary caregivers for their children. So these are hard, and the stories of sexual harassment and other kinds of discrimination that young women are telling just out of college are the same stories their grandmothers told, their mothers, their grandmothers, still telling the same stories. The Women's March I was in a few years ago, I was with Sarah Jacobs' other grandmother, not the Jacobs grandmother, a spitfire of a woman. And she carried a sign that said, "I can't believe I'm still marching for this." So yes, there's improvement, but we got to keep our eye on the ball. Things are getting better, but not fast enough. And that's, that's why the Kim Center exists. I'm so impatient with this. Anyone else? I know we're a minute away from our time.
I know. I understand fully. I've been marching since the 70s. I'm getting too old to do it now.
Yeah.
By the time you're 83, it's not such a fun thing anymore.
Yeah.
But the last one I was on, gave me the same feelings as when I did it in the late 60s and early 70s,
Yeah. And I think one of the most critical gaps, and again, why the Kim Center was created, is in data. Like if you want to get healthier or you take on a fitness program, you're supposed to consult your doctor and you need to identify your goals, right? Are you doing it to lower your blood pressure? Are you doing it to get stronger? Are you doing it to get thinner? What are your goals? And then what are the metrics for those goals? And then what are the pretty standard ways of getting there? I mean, we've got weights, we've got running, we've got, cycling. It's pretty well laid out what you're going to do and what your milestones are. This is missing in the gender equity mission. And so that's why the Kim Center came up with the assessment, so that we can chart from year to year in a company and every 3 years in a region, where are we in terms of our levels of microaggressions for Black women? Where are we in terms of representation in leadership in publicly traded companies? Where are we in terms of access to the pipeline for Latinas? And we're just going to put that out there in black and white. So it's a combination of qualitative and quantitative data, but it's all quantified so that no matter where you are in the country, we're all speaking the same language. And so in 5 years, in 10 years, we can actually chart what our progress is and then target where we're falling down on the job and celebrate where we're improving. That's my best solution.
I think you're doing a great job.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's what I wanted to say. Excuse me. Thank you so much. Great speaker, Jane.
Yeah. Well,
This has been awesome. I mean, I'm totally support your mission. I am part of a nonprofit too, an executive director that advances technology education and economic development for women and underserved youth. So this is so
Fabulous.
aligned with what you do.
Yes, we need to connect.
I'd sent you connection on LinkedIn.
Oh, perfect.
And yes, I would love to. But thank you so much. This has been inspiring, and I look forward to the statistics that you've come up with.
Thank you. Yes, I will. It's just a list of links. It's research, part of some of the research that we've been doing, not out of the Kim Center, but existing research. And then I'll put my contact information on there in our website, so you can learn more about us and get in touch with me if you want. It's been a
Yes.
real pleasure.
And our AAUW San Diego, we are supporters of the Kim Center. We're on
Yes.
their website too.
Yes.
So Shauna, you might want to do the same with your ed equity. Just say that you support the Kim Center and it's free. So
Yeah. We have a gender equity collaborative, just to really drive home the point that we're all doing this together.
Okay.
yes, we are. And I forgot to introduce you as Dr. Hei ock. I think that's very important after all the
Thank you.
things that went on with Dr. Jill Biden. So we're
Yeah,
proud
right.
that you're Dr. Hei ock and
Thank
all
you.
the work that you're doing for all of us.
Thank you. And
And-
thank you. I mean, AAUW is a cornerstone. So we're lucky to
Okay.
have you.
Well,
And,
thank you.
well, we're hoping to make some changes too, Hale. So we'll see what happens after our elections that are coming up.
Going
Wonderful.
on, not coming up.
Yeah, going
Yeah,
on.
yeah. Well, keep Jane. I'm sure she's a treasure to you, because I know she's a treasure to me.
No, thank
She
you.
is here,
Yes.
definitely.
All right. Well, have wonderful weekends, everybody. And
Thank
I
you.
look forward to connecting with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Heyo. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hale.
Bye now.
Thank you.
Okay.
That was great.
Yeah,
right.
that was great. Thanks, Jane.
Oh, you're welcome.
Good job.
Anything else we want to talk about? I guess most people left, so.
Yeah, is that me? I'm holding it's over the camera. It still doesn't, I guess having raised a millennial, I'll start off by saying our recent show that we put on after the convention this year had the title, We Did It For You.
Mm-hmm.
And often I have been online at the UN during the CSW meetings, chatting with younger women who are around me or whatever while we're online. Not saying we did it for you, but making the connection that there is a rich history here, that this didn't happen all of a sudden, that actually in some of the international contacts that we had, were way ahead of us as the United States regarding, quote unquote, we did it for you. But a lot of millennials, getting to my point, don't care. They don't care that are in the general population. As I continue to teach at the community college, they're not interested in that necessarily. Yes, I think they appreciate the partnership and they appreciate the mentoring, but they don't want to know all about the history and what went into it. And I often think, is there another way to market the history, to let them know how to put on a marketable version of, I guess maybe there isn't one. Maybe they just, let me plug in here, I'm losing my power. Maybe we just have to wait until it catches up. I don't know. I'd like to know what other people experience.
What do you mean, wait till it
With
catches
regard
up?
to receptivity of our history as women, and we did it for you. I don't mean politically. I mean just generally in the general. Like, it's easy, Shauna, for you because it's technology. And that's visible and that's graphic. It's less easy for us. I think the relationships we form, for example, that I have formed as a teacher, does do that, but I don't feel it's impactful, but not very impactful. I think once we start rewarding students' efforts, if we could, then it will make a difference.
Sherry, I think it's always been that way. I think
That's what I mean.
there are certain people that like people like us, we've always been interested. I think I've always been interested in the history and the women that have come before, but there are always going to be people that aren't interested. It reminds me of this young woman that I used to teach with, and she said to me one day, well, she was in her 20s and I was probably in my 40s. She said, well, I just don't understand why I have to pay into the retirement system. I need the money now. It's like she was never ever going to get old and maybe want to retire. I said, well, I guess you wouldn't have to if you want to just keep teaching until you drop dead, you know. So there are people like that. And I'm sure there are millennials that are interested in things like this. I don't know. That's my opinion.
Thank you. I appreciate your sharing. I don't know about anyone else. You know, everyone goes off, you know, and as Hei ock said, you know, every generation wants to do more than the generation before. And I think there's a frustration among millennials, correct me if I misspeak, that I don't think they necessarily want to do more. I think they'd like to do whatever it is they need to do. They'd like to do it, but they don't necessarily want to do more. They feel that their inability to earn, their earning power has limited what they can do. That's the feeling I have. So, but I think that credibility has to be built up. And maybe as there are more women in office, there will be a different sense of appreciation. You know, because I thought of Anne when Hei ock said to you, you should make that a song. Well, we had a song. We had Helen Reddy, I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar, you know. Right. And as whoever was speaking previously said, I've been roaring for decades now. How much more roaring can I still do? So I'm only raising this as playing devil's advocate almost, but it is something that's been on my mind. And
I think until the people become the next generation, which means you have children or people of a younger generation that we need to influence, I don't think you're still a me person. And when you become the parent or the grandparent or the aunt, the uncle, you have more of a feeling about helping the prior ones. And you get a little bit further away from just a me generation. So I think it's just inevitable as we go on that you have to let the kids be me, and then they'll graduate into something else.
I agree with that.
Great, Randa. That's an interesting point.
And I think there is a mindset difference. You know, our AAW California board, we authorized payment to a marketing company, and they did some focus groups, some within the organization, but mostly outside the organization. And where one of the focus groups, they were trying to market to younger members. And I think they went from 20 to, I think like 39, I believe, but it could have been 35. And they all thought the mission was fine and blah, blah, blah. But their number one reason to join AAUW would be for networking and career advancement opportunities. And their very last reason they wanted to join was public policy.
Right.
For the rest of us, our main reason to join is public policy. We want to push that agenda.
Right.
So it was a surprise to me, I think, and to the whole board that what means the regular members, i.e. public policy, is not, nope, that was the last on their list of reasons to join for the younger generation.
So the connections, you mean, was the first.
Networking, career networking.
Career network, yes.
Yeah, I think you're right too, Randa, because you know, I'm an older baby boomer from the, you know, I went to college in the late 60s, and they called us the me generation too back then. We were the me generation, and we were selfish and, you know, and terrible and going to hell in the handbasket.
Jane, I am shocked.
Well, not me personally, but my generation, because I was always Miss Goody Two Shoes, but I don't know. That I just remember hearing that. Oh, that's your generation.
And we graduated. We graduated into, we need to take care of, I mean, when you become the sandwich generation, that's when it becomes, oh my goodness, we have the people older than us and the people younger than us. And you have a much broader understanding or care or something when you become in the sandwich generation.
Anne has a cat.
Yeah.
What did you say, Jane? And what?
Has a cat.
Yeah.
Hola, Lola.
Hola, Lola.
Oh.
Yeah, I'd just like to think that I imagine, you know, if I were to put myself in a millennial situation, male or female, you want to hurry up, you know, let's hurry up, let me get there, that kind of feeling. And I think that the newer generation, the younger one, I don't know what they call Y or whatever before the millennials, have a different set of values. On the surface, it seems that way.
I'm
Can't put my finger on why there is that difference. I don't know. And surely, I think those coming out of the pandemic, this last year and a half, I think their values will be different.
Anne, what were you saying?
I tend to agree with Sherry, and I have a booklet that I need to have printed, and I've been told nobody reads anymore. Why go to the bother of printing up? Everybody's into doing everything digitally. So get that book on digital programs and forget about printing. And to me, this is very disturbing.
It is true too, Anne. That is very true.
But are younger people too eager to speed things up that they can't just mull about different issues or read about different issues and discuss them? I'm just...
Or even listen. There's a lot of them are doing listening, you know, Audible or other iPods, podcasts.
Well, you know, I'm always going around and having lunch places by myself. I always have a book with me, an actual book. And I'm really interested because often the waitresses or waiters will come and talk to me about it. And I've been exchanging books with this one waitress at Great Maple because she likes to buy books too. So they're still out there. They're still buying books. And I gave her some books. She gave me some books. And
yeah,
it's a good
there
way
was
to
a
have.
cute post recently on Facebook. There was a cute post about that, about interest in books. And I think there's certain stores are rewarding parents' efforts and handing out, it's like Dolly Parton's library program. Yeah. They're handing out books when you reach a certain, if you bring in certain things, they're handing out new books for kids. So I think that's something concrete that I see as changing the values of that generation and the sense of appreciation for reading.
My granddaughter, my 10-year-old granddaughter reads constantly, a couple books a day, but it's all library.
Well, still there are books.
Books are books.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not something that she's buying. She's and,
Right.
and Oregon up here has at least around here, or it's some kind of a book club kind of a thing that all the schools get into from about 4th to 6th grade or 3rd to 6th grade or something.
Right.
And they talk about books and so forth. I think it's just great.
Mm-hmm.
Me too. I do think we might see a big shift in the culture of younger people because of what's going on right now. You know, a lot of us, Shauna, you can close your ears because you obviously aren't part of this, but a lot of us were in the Vietnam War era. And so you know, things just converged and there was a huge change in society and in what people wanted to do and commitments we made. And I think that's for a lot of the older AAW members, that just carried on through life. We're always out there. We always want to make a difference. We always want to make changes in society. And I think now with everything that's revolving around social justice issues and, you know, white supremacy, that I think that's another cataclysmic change that we're in the process of making. And I think you may see that reflected in, you know, the next few years and what younger people are interested in and are willing to do.
And they're getting awarded for their, like the young woman who took the video at the time of the George Floyd. I forgot her name. I think her first name's Daniela. There was a fund set up for her so that she could feel, not that she asked for it, she didn't ask for it, but there was a community uprising to support her. And I think that that fund earned $639,000. So, you know, I think that not that every kid has got to be paid for what they do, but it would be good to see them have smaller loans for school, so to speak, and easier access to funding and funds. And I mean, that's one thing I do have to applaud Palomar College's efforts for is each of the students that filled out, it took all but 15 minutes. It was a short application. And during the worst time of the pandemic, they were able to get funding, about $3,300. And they also got free computers and free hotspots. And they're also getting every 2 weeks, have been getting free food for those that are food deprived. So I really have been on the front line of seeing a lot of how problematic a lot of their situations are. And I was pleased to see, like, the Ariana Gormans of the world. I like to see their efforts rewarded.
And
men
the
and
speech
women,
track
young men
girls.
and young women.
I think the speech track girls were so good.
They were.
What girls?
Speech track.
Right. But I
Yeah,
really
yes.
thought the winner should have been from La Mesa El Cajon. She was awesome. She was clear, concise.
I think she was too busy, too much moving.
I thought she didn't win because she didn't do any cons. She only did the pros of social media, and the other two did pro and con. I
Good
think
for you noticing that, Jane. I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I've heard her twice though. She spoke at our La Mesa El Cajon meeting, and then I listened again last Saturday, and so yeah, I thought she was they're all very good.
They were very good.
Hate to judge I hate to give out places because they're all so good. I'd say, oh, you've all won. They're all the best. So
I kind of feel the same way now that I'm reading our scholarship applications. You know?
You're reading
you
those
want to say, oh, they're all good. Give it to all of them.
for San Diego branch. You're reading them?
Yes, the San Diego branch.
Oh, good. Yeah. Did Melissa Cusa, did she apply?
there's I got the folder. And so I don't know if is she a past recipient?
She not for San Diego branch, no.
Oh, no.
Okay. Well, guys, this
I'm
is
only
great.
reading the San Diego branch.
I enjoyed this little talk at the end.
Yeah,
It was
this
fun.
conversation was really good. There's this, this particular theme is ongoing. So we have to take our vitamins and keep the energy up.
Keep battling.
Yeah, keep battling. I guess that's a way of, well, I guess that's a way of putting it. I just wish there was another verb we could use.
Well, remember back in the day, we used to say, keep the faith. Remember?
Keep the faith.
That's right.
Keep,
back in the 70s or 80s, whenever it
explaining,
was.
exactly.
Keep
To
on
keep
keeping on.
He had said, keep on keeping on.
Yeah.
I had a friend's mother tell me that when I was retiring, you're going to keep on keeping on. So.
Bye, and thank
Ladies.
you, Jane, for organizing this.
Oh, you're welcome, everybody. It's great to see everybody.
When's our next board meeting?
And Jane, will you mail us the recording? Because I missed the
No,
first.
I can't mail the recording. It's too
I
big.
meant,
It'll be on
Just
YouTube.
Go to the website.
oh, it'll be on YouTube. That's right.
I'll send you the link.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
When's
Yeah.
our next board meeting, Jane?
Next Saturday at 2.
Oh, next Saturday. Okay.
2 p.m. Yeah, in the morning we have our authors event, which you should all sign up. Right?
Well, you know,
Miranda?
We have 102 right now.
oh, good.
Oh, wow. Good for us.
I have a conflict that morning. I signed up for Howie Penasquito's authors.
Yeah, I did too. I did both
I
of them.
did too.
Of yours, but it's like, oh, what am I going to do? Because I need to be down to
Toss a coin.
9 o'clock. Well, I have a shift to do.